Today we're going to be making these individual orange dream cakes that are sure to be a hit at your next get-together. Everybody has those family recipes. It's almost like their secret family recipe. And this is ours, only I guess now it's not so secret. Even my daughter, now that she's grown, she's like, how do you make that cake again? And now she can just watch the video and I won't have to explain it again. So I've added 1 box of yellow cake mix. And now I'm going to be adding to the bowl 4 eggs. I'm adding 1 cup of butter. With the butter, I always melt it down so it's a liquid form, but then you don't want it to be hot and touching those eggs. So I let it cool off a little bit before I pour it in. And then you're going to give that a good mix. Now with this next step, you have to get a can of oranges that are about 11 ounces. Sometimes it's hard to find one that's exactly 11 ounces, but you're gonna need more oranges whenever you're done with it to put it on the top anyway. So you wanna go more than 11 ounces, but inside the cake mix, we're gonna be doing 11 ounces. And that is with the juice. So what I usually do is I will kind of pour off, you can see that it has the juice in it and the mandarin oranges. I'm gonna pour off some of the juice because we're gonna chop up those oranges. Oops. And then we're gonna add it to the bowl in little tiny pieces. So now I'm gonna try to make as little mess as possible and then chop these into tiny pieces. It gets a little bit messy because all those juices come out, but all of that's gonna be going into the bowl. All right, and now you're gonna mix that all up. We're gonna go miniature today with all of our desserts. I'm gonna be putting these inside these miniature ones, so the cook time will vary depending on how you're making your cake. All right, let's see how many that makes. I do have a little bit more reserve in my bowl, but since I didn't want to overfill this, I'm gonna be adding that back in later. Before I fill these up, I'm gonna spray each of the pans with olive oil. You can use any cooking spray, Pam. This is just to make it so it doesn't stick. I feel like it's always so time consuming doing them in miniature form, but I think it just makes the cutest dessert table to have everything small. So I'm gonna start off with that and we'll see how many that fills. So I'm using a miniature scooper. I don't have like the regular size, I just have the miniature size. But you probably wanna do these a little bit less than half full. That way they have room to rise. That one might be a little full. I think maybe we'll go with half because I definitely don't want these to overflow. This recipe is so good, especially for like spring. It's just a really fresh tasting cake. My husband, he actually doesn't even like cake. That's crazy to me, but he doesn't like cake, but he does like this cake and then a strawberry cake that I make. So I should say that he doesn't really like store-bought cake. But I feel like this cake doesn't really taste like your traditional store-bought cake. It's just very, very different. So if you have those people in your life that they're pie people, not cake people, they still might like this recipe. So it looks like it's about maybe 2.5 of those mini scoop is what I'm putting inside these. I'll have these little tins listed in my Amazon storefront in case you want these exact tins. We've been making this recipe for so long. Once you try this cake, you're gonna probably see why it's gonna become one of your family's favorites. I have noticed that it makes a big difference in the oranges that you pick. I really like to get the Dole ones. It seems like some of the other ones, whether they're in syrup or whether they're in their own juices, some of them are a lot sweeter than other ones. And if you're getting the ones that aren't as sweet, your cake isn't gonna be as sweet. And when you put them on top of your cake, it's just not gonna give you the same sweetness. So I'm gonna put these on a sheet tray. So it looks like I made 15 of these miniature sized ones. So I'm gonna put these in the oven at 350 degrees and I'm just gonna kind of watch them. Like I said, cook time will really vary whether you're making a big cake, you're making a tiered cake, a sheet pan cake. You're just gonna wanna be able to stick a toothpick or even a butter knife into the center and it come out clean. While that's cooking, I'm gonna make the frosting that goes on top of the cake. So I'm gonna want about half of this tub of Cool Whip. So I'm just gonna kind of guess. Now that I have the Cool Whip inside the bowl, I'm gonna go ahead and put in the Jell-O mixture. This is just the instant vanilla pudding. I'm telling you, this recipe is so simple and it tastes so good. You're just gonna pour that whole packet inside the Cool Whip. Then you're gonna give it a good mix. You wanna mix it until all that powder is kind of combined. You're gonna get crushed pineapple. This one is a 20-ounce can. It's usually the average size that the large can comes in. Although I have noticed that some of my cake recipes that I make, the amount of cake that comes in the box or the amount of pineapple that comes in the cans, some of those brands have changed and they put less in it. So it's almost like you have to re-look at some of your recipes. So I'm gonna pour that in. It settles a little bit in the fridge, but if it looks a little bit too watery from the crushed pineapple, if you have a can that's like just really extra wet, you can just add in a little bit extra Cool Whip. That's why it's always nice to get that big can. But the Jell-O will help that settle as well. Go ahead and put the lid on it and put it in the fridge until I'm ready to frost the cakes. So I pulled these out of the oven. I probably cooked mine for about 19 minutes, but keep an eye on your cakes because they can go to overdone really quickly. My frosting's thickened up and my cakes are cooled, so now we're ready to decorate. Like I said, this isn't your traditional frosting. It's just kind of like a whipped topping almost. So what I do is I just fill it with that topping. And then I'm gonna add some oranges on top. The reason why I didn't give really an amount for how much oranges you buy is really because it depends on how you decorate your cakes and how much oranges you want to use for the topping. I do think that my frosting is gonna settle a little bit more in the refrigerator. I decorated them a little bit early, but all of these are gonna go back in the refrigerator anyways. And now you have a simple and easy cake that people are gonna be asking you for the recipe and you're gonna be making time and time again.